That day, the man reached out his hand to the girl named Lori and said that from that day on, their partnership began. He hoped they would get stronger. When they decided to do it, he reached for her hand and said, "Okay." They would be stronger with that. The two of them swore to be strong, simple, and eternal. A few days before, the man approached Tsuguto on the bus, asking why she didn't even listen to him. He told her to give him the seat Tsuguto was sitting in quietly, thinking that growing up comes with failures. At that moment, all these words are what he remembered. He wondered what he would do if this happened in 2 or 3 years. He might not even listen, but now he stands up and tells this person to sit down without hesitation. The man pushed her and sat in her place, thinking that if they assumed he was fighting, he would just beat her up. And even if he won, the police would have helped him out, and he would have been abandoned by society. Both outcomes were not in his favor, and that's why he just gave up with a grin. But if this develops, then what does it mean to be human? He looks at people and thinks about what this looks like. Is it sympathy or mockery? He actually mocks himself, but at that moment, when their bus crashed into the fence, there was an accident. Tsuguto approached him, feeling and thinking, is this really an accident? And all the passengers survived. He was left behind like a rag doll, all because he decided to stand up thanks to this person. Well, from there, he didn't pay attention to people whose appearance was full of horror. Tsuguto himself was scared. He then caught his attention on the glass shards from the bus window piercing his body. He thought the color was dark red. Was he cold and unable to move? They were just joking about how to make sure he wouldn't die just like that, and this person died. Who did he give a laugh and filmed it? Tsuguto stared at him and thought that this scoundrel was recording his death, becoming very angry and thinking that he shouldn't laugh at him. Let him die and go to hell. Why exactly should he die? Why should he entertain people like him? All his desires to kill, all his anger and all his regrets. With his gaze he cursed everything that was in this world, even if his eyes became empty, even though his breath stopped. But then he opened his eyes and found that he was safe, and heard he was lying in the middle of some cave people. He immediately stood up and thought it was his voice. Could he really move, it turns out? He was still alive. He saw everything above himself, and thought it was his uniform clean, and he had no wounds. He tried to remember his name, and he succeeded. He said his memory was fine too, but what happened? This wasn't a bus. Maybe he was sleeping. But that's what happened. The coolness of the air, the humidity of the place where he put this object clearly wasn't a dream. He touched the stone wall and asked what it meant. He was saved, right? He started looking around carefully and said it looked like some kind of cave. Then a man with a torch came out to meet him. Tsuguto looked at him and thought he seemed lucky to have met someone in this strange cave. So he decided to talk to the man very tall. Tsuguto stared directly into her eyes and was shocked to see that this man had blue eyes. He wondered if blue eyes were not common in Japan. The man turned to him and called him by name, saying that if he passed by, he had to do it faster. If he didn't leave, then let him stand here until he finished. After that, the man started his work. Tsuguto was surprised and wondered what was happening here. The man was clearly not Japanese, and he didn't know what language he had just spoken to him, but he still understood the gist of it. He paid attention to the path behind this man and thought that there might be a way out. Yes, this was what he had to do first: find out where he was. He went out, and along the way, he found some shining stones. He bent down to look at them and thought that these were very small, precious stones. Maybe they were expensive. He decided to take one and put it in his wallet because he had lost his belongings. So he decided to take one of these stones. He lifted it and realized that it was transparent. Tsuguto said that this stone was much more beautiful than the others, and he was sure it was worth taking another one. He continued through this section and found some more men. Some of them were carrying buckets. Tsuguto thought that everyone here was like that. He decided to follow them, and he was not wrong because they led him outside. Now he started looking around again and realized that it was definitely not Japan. Almost everyone here had blonde hair and their clothes were very similar to the Middle Ages. A small group caught his attention, thinking they were really walking with swords. Maybe they looked like adventurers from a game. Then a little girl walked behind them with a shovel. Tsuguto didn't pay any attention to her, and thought she had never heard of any country with such low numbers. The development level of the place was like, what? Now the men caught his attention, who was in line and who had just been in the cave. Tsuguto was surprised and thought that people with stones in line might have to get them there too, but he still decided not to do this, and decided he had to take a closer look around. He saw a very high mountain that surprised him. He thought it was amazing, steep mountains towering above the clouds. They reminded him of the Tower of Babel described in myths, and they denied almost all the knowledge he had received for 17 years. It was such a spectacle. Finally, he realized that this place was not on Earth. Now, Tsuguto started working too. He was very tired and showed him the reason. The little girl who had just walked behind him was secretly watching him. Tsuguto didn't pay any attention to her at all and thought that anyway he had to mine stones here. This happened after he realized that this world was not Earth. Then a man who ran his shop approached him and asked if he was okay. Tsuguto turned around quietly and saw this person. The man told him that he wasn't queuing, he was just standing there doing nothing. Maybe he failed to collect magical ore. Tsuguto didn't quite understand what we were talking about, so he asked what kind of magical stone it was. The man said, "Yes, it's a magical ore. Have you heard about them here? They're always lacking magic or miners, and because of that, there are many thieves and other trash bags here. The monsters in the local underground are regularly slaughtered by adventurers, so he'll be safe as long as he doesn't go too deep." Tsuguto slowly began to realize what was happening here. According to him, this adventurer and the monsters in the underground were truly a fantasy world. The man told him to lower his head, so Tsuguto decided to search in his pants pocket and thought, of course, let's believe the words of the person I took this from. He took out a small magic stone from his pocket and asked if this blue stone was also magic. The man answered, yes, if he doesn't mind, he'll take a look. Tsuguto asked what it was and how much it cost. The man started examining the stone carefully and said that he believed the stone had a market value. As far as he could judge its frequency, it was quite good. Maybe he would have to hire another medical officer, so it would cost 11 larks. Of course, Tsuguto didn't understand anything he said. He thought about how much it would cost and decided to ask this person what he could buy with this money. The man said that with 11 larks, he could buy a pack of dried fruits. Tsuguto was surprised and thought it was very little. It turns out, if he compared it, it would be even less than 100 yen. Then he remembered something and took out another stone and asked the man if he could see what this stone was. The man was immediately surprised and asked if it was an etheric crystal. Tsuguto didn't understand and asked if it was really fine crystal. The person told him that it was very rare. Without it, he couldn't make potions. If he sold it to him, he would give him 2 big and 6 regular silver coins. Higher than the market price, along with 11 for one stone, this became a reality. 6,211 larks, true. Tsuguto thought about it. In other words, 1 medak is 1 lark, a big medak is 10 larks, 6 silver is 600 larks, and 2 big silver coins are 1,000 larks. That's how he more or less understood their currency. Then he handed the stone to the man and said to let him take it. And how many people do things like this? The man smiled and said it didn't look like dried meat, and it only cost 1 silver. Tsuguto said he would take 1. The man thanked him for his purchase. Tsuguto was about to leave, but then he remembered about staying overnight. He asked the man if there was a place nearby to sleep. The man himself thought about it. He couldn't sleep on the street in a world like this, so if he didn't find a place to stay, the man pointed him in the direction, telling him that if he went there, he would come out to the city. There was an inn on the main street called the Dragon's Den. It cost 5 silver per night. Tsuguto thought that 500 larks weren't good in this case. He would spend all his money very quickly. It would be very good if he finds a way to return to his world in a few days, but there is a high chance that this will not happen, which means he needs money. How much can you get from 1 magical ore? Then he asked this person if he sells packages in buckets. The man told him that the option is sold next to the building, and he could take the bucket for free from the pile. Tsuguto said that would prove that he could overcome it. He thought he would return to the underground prison and dig up all the ore buckets. And now he was tired and almost collected nothing there, just one stone in his bucket. He thought why nothing worked for him from those who came to this underground prison to work in this area. About 100 people are digging here, and he was sure he had chosen the right place, but why was he the only one? If it continues like this, he will only collect a few stones. Now he has to rely only on luck. Then a girl turned to him and said she was here. She pointed to this place with her shovel and said it was a good place. Tsuguto was surprised and asked if she was really talking to him. The girl told him to check carefully and think about what Tsuguto said. Check it out and think about what this child seems to come from some fantastic races. He approached her and asked what was wrong with this wall. The girl told him that he had to dig here. Tsuguto asked why there were no signs. The girl told him that she was really serious. Tsuguto claimed that it meant he was lying when the girl got offended and said that she wasn't offended. Tsuguto said that, but there was no trace of anyone digging here before the girl said that yesterday, so they all disappeared. Tsuguto stopped understanding anything and said that this really didn't make sense. How could mining traces disappear in one day? It's just a stupid lie that he should have told the good girl and just apologized to her, telling her that he would understand as soon as he saw it. He took his shovel and went to the place and said that if he dug here, he would definitely find ore. He dug up a small magic stone and showed it to her. Tsuguto simply couldn't believe his eyes and mind that this was just a swing he took. He took the pickaxe and said that he didn't believe it. He must have been just lucky. But after a while he asked her that the wall really healed itself. The girl said yes, the wall in the basement replicates itself even if she destroys it. Tsuguto said that means even though the wall was restored 100 years ago, and there won't be anyone inside it anymore. The girl is now dealing with stones and says that she is also recovering, but slower than the wall. Then she took a closer look at the stones, rolled them over, and said that this one is bad. Tsuguto asked what and how long it would take for the ore to recover. The girl told him that it would take about 2 or 3 days. The man thought clearly that he thought this was not the child. Not all miners here know exactly what day and walls they have to dig. After a while, he and the girl completely filled the bucket that Tsuguto asked them to fill. Shortly after, the girl said that they still had many questions. Tsuguto asked how much they would get for it. The girl mentioned about 5 silver coins. Tsuguto thought he already felt enough for one night as long as he knew where to dig. There should be no money problem. He thanked the girl and said she saved him. He asked her name. The girl mentioned her name was Lori. Tsuguto also introduced himself and asked why she helped him. Lori blushed and said it was nothing. Tsuguto stared at her full of questions. Rie said she was so worried about him. She laughed and asked if he was just a very good girl. He patted her head and thanked her. He looked at her in awe and asked if this was wool. She was a sheep, not a lamb. No one said how rough she was, not a sheep but a mouflon. This made Tsuguto feel awkward and he apologized to her. He said he wouldn't make the same mistake again, so he wouldn't let her get mad. Lori sighed and said she forgave him. She had reached for the bucket to take it and sell it. She told him they would go and sell it. However, then Lori heard something. Tsuguto noticed this and asked if something had happened. Worried, Danalt said he was here accompanied by 3 men rushing in. Tsuguto asked if she was saying the right thing. Lori said it was the man in the middle. Tsuguto said he was very big. Is he really taller than 190 centimeters? Who is he? Lori said he's a bad person. After that, Danalt's company started causing trouble here and taking their loot, as he said. Clearly he's a bad person. He watches everything that happens and thinks that he can take everything. He needs even more. Always looking for new victims. What kind of evil man is he? And why don't people confront him? They just smile at him tightly, as if he's their boss. Did he really say that? Doesn't he know why they don't fight back? Because it's the easiest way out. It would cause minimal damage and it's safer. As a result of this sucking up, he dies, fooling himself in front of someone, and then dying. That's his whole life. Does he have the right to look down on them because of his past? So why is he fair now? Then a big fat man approaches them and tells them that they owe 10 stones each. They have to hurry and give them to him. Lori says she won't do it. The man tells her to relax and share the stones with them, which they carve into monsters so they can mine or safely and reasonably to pay for their work. Lori says he's lying The adventurers have come today and they're not among them. Then Danalt gets involved, very angry, and tells him to listen carefully. They tell him to give it back, so stop whining. Lori closes her eyes and screams, calling him to be quiet. She won't give him anything. Danalt calls her name and threatens to confront her, but then a stone flies right in front of her face. This stone was thrown at her by Suguto. He thought something dark had awakened deep within his eyes. Danalt called out to him, mentioning his name and asking what he was doing. Suguto didn't answer. He just kept staring at them, thinking how disgusting he felt. There were only 3 of them against him, and they were armed. The chances of them winning were negligible. They should just give up and hand over their stones. But looking back at himself in the past, he couldn't do that here, next to a girl who seemed a little hesitant. How pathetic he felt, disgusted with himself. Danalt couldn't stand it anymore and started yelling at him, asking who he thought he was throwing stones at him. Suguto asked him if he needed the stone, didn't he? He complained about his partner. Danalt yelled at him that he was right, without a partner. Who was the fat one telling Danalt that this was true? Why didn't they just retreat? Even though he was just a slave of Ri's Maka, it was difficult for them to approach him. Besides, it was only a few pieces of silver that they were talking about. Danalt couldn't take it anymore and yelled at him to shut up. He turned to Tsuguto and asked him if he knew what was happening here for people like him. Tsuguto wondered what was happening. It was good to question the worst-case scenario that he would experience being killed, but compared to the fact that he liked someone and died, it made him laugh. The process of standing up and dying wasn't so bad. So he firmly told Danalt to put away his sword and called him a piece of shit. This made Danalt very angry. So without holding back, he moved straight towards him and said that if he wanted to die, then he would fulfill what he wanted the most. Danalt ran straight towards her and drew his sword while running. Tsuguto didn't move at all, and then Lori defended her by hitting Danalt's arm with his shovel. Danalt didn't hold back and started beating the girl. Tsuguto was very scared because of him and rushed to aid Lori, who was unconscious. She thought he was trying to save her. Danalt shouted that this would happen to every slave who fought against him. Weak people deserved to lie on the ground. He looked at Tsuguto and said she was next, and not to think otherwise. A naughty child could protect her. Tsuguto didn't tell him anything. She just stared at him with angry eyes. Danalt was very scared. He thought those eyes wanted to kill them. They were filled with anger and regret. Dedication, self-confidence, extreme concentration roared through impenetrable darkness. This was a pure curse kept. Danalt moved further away from her, telling her to stay away from him. After Tsuguto scared them half to death, they quickly left. Then he treated Lori. He asked what he could drink. He better drink it. He drank his potion, gave it to him, and immediately woke up. Tsuguto asked if everything was okay with her. Did she hurt an old woman anywhere? She came into the room and told the man that she had said everything was fine with her. Did he really bring her here for deception? There are 2 large silver coins from him, and let him sweep them out with him, because it's time for him to close the Tsuguto store, calling the woman a witch and saying she's making too much noise. Lori had just woken up when the girl finally realized, asked Tsuguto how she was. Lori said everything was fine, and asked where they were. Tsuguto said it was some kind of magic tool shop, and the old woman heard this and said it is the Haina magical tool shop. Tsuguto told Lori that after all that coincidence, they left the underground prison. The man told her that this was the best place to do it. Help him, of course. It's good if they come here. But this strange old witch tried to force him to drink suspicious liquid, telling him he wouldn't pay a penny if he didn't get it. Better he be healed, isn't he sick? Saying that he was already healed, Suo asked about it. He wasn't joking, right? You can see everything on his face. The old woman heard their entire conversation and asked her that she was really trying to avoid payment. Tsuguto smiled and said that she was joking. She thanked this woman. She thanked her for the fact that she thanked her. Lori is safe, and he instructs him to do it. Thank you also. Lori bows to this woman and says, thank you too. The woman says it's all fine because after all it's her job. Tsuguto says it will not be good to ask her about this but after she is saved. Then let her give them a discount where she also tells him to do the same thing repeated by Lori. Afterwards, she instructs him to offer a discount, but the woman remains unfazed. She promptly kicks them out and demands immediate payment before ushering them out. The story concludes with Suguto noticing the remaining money, believing they have 21 larks left. Concerned, he turns to Lori and inquires about his home. Confused, I question what home he is referring to, since he doesn't have one of his own. Suguto is taken aback and proceeds to ask where Lori spent the night and the whereabouts of his parents. Lori reveals that he always sleeps at the shelter and is unaware of his parents' location. Suguto queries the shelter's location, learning it's at the entrance to the basement. Suguto contemplates the dangers of walking along the dark underground mountain path and considers finding a hotel in the city. The money interjects, stating that the treatment costs 2 large silver coins and apologizes for the request. Suguto reassures him that there's no need for an apology. Lori then presents her money, urging Suguto to accept it. Surprised, Suguto calculates the total to be 350 larks, leaving him with 561 larks, which should be more than enough. He sighed and said that he really felt like he was constantly saving her from those words. This was his path, while Danault was truly angry, destroying his entire room and offending the girl. He pushed her roughly and told her not to touch him. She fainted on her bed and started cursing some system. Windows appeared in his writing place, stating that his name was Danault. His race was human, male, over 25 years old, with a level 21 status. It showed that he was cursed. His HP was 137 out of 137, and he also had minus 239 MP. His strength was 15, agility 10, intelligence 17, and willpower 11. He also had abilities such as a level 5 carpenter, level 3 miner, level 1 extortionist, level 3 wizard detection, level 1 sharp speech, level 2 escape artist, level 2 thief, level 1 and 2 magic exchange. It was also written that he had a level 1 status limitation system. Danault checked all of this and thought he was really robbed of 239 GP. Such a blow was impossible to do. If he wasn't careful, he could even die from it. It was all that idiot's fault. He had to do something, at least something. Meanwhile, Suguto woke up in the morning feeling something soft beside him. He touched it and thought if this was really hair right next to him. Lori was sleeping on his shoulder. Suguto asked why she was in his bed. Suguto stood up and asked about it. There was another bed. There, he knew why he went to sleep with her. He started to remember the previous night and thought how happy he was after everything that happened. By chance, he could stay at a tavern called Dragon's Den Stop. There was a very gloomy middle-aged man here. Then he thought that all men were here. The world is truly so big, as humans say, that they wouldn't be allowed to use the dining room if it suited them. Then their rooms were on the 3rd floor and fully available to them, and they would be charged 5 silver tsugutos to see the dining room and think why only him. He told the man that it was good, then this man told him to take the key, and here they had hot and cold water, where he took the thermos with hot water and was very happy to see it enter. Surprised, he asked what Lori said, that there was a magical ore inside. He entered their room, and Lori put this pumpkin into the lamp itself, and said that if he did this, the lamp would light up. She said that hot water baths were also possible if he put the magical ore in and took a little water. Suguto was surprised by this and thought this was a normal thing. Lori asked him what he was doing or if he wanted to take a bath together. Suguto said no, there was no need because he understood everything perfectly. After that, he gave him some jerky and told him to eat one, but he ate it with a very unhappy face. He went to the bathroom and then lay down to rest, and finally, he fell asleep. He looked at their belongings and thought that everything had happened washed away. He woke up Lori and wished him good morning. He told him that since he woke up, he finally had to get dressed. He also thanked him for doing the laundry. He put some kind of badge on himself, which Lori seemed very interested in. He asked her what kind of badge it was. Lori asked him if he didn't know. Suguto said no, that's why he did it. Lori asked if it was a badge. She said he really lost his badge and asked how he could lose it if he didn't start with it. Lori made a very unhappy expression and said it was really bad. After that, they quickly got ready and went out. Now they are standing near a big building, and Suguto asked if this could really be the Adventurers Guild. He thought that's what they meant when they called him without a label, meaning he didn't have a tag. He is currently thinking about it, wondering if there is someone in this world without any mark. He asked Lori how people can be sure that he doesn't have a mark. He thought maybe it's in his pocket. Lori pointed to his adventurer's guild and told him that he can find the answer when he enters here. As they walked inside, a girl greeted them and said, "Welcome to the Adventurers Guild. They came to return the token, didn't they?" Tsuguto thought the reception was beautiful as he stepped out of the painting and told the girl that they didn't have the recovery token. So they had to create something new. The girl was very surprised and asked what they actually said to create one of the. Lori nodded after the girl told them to wait here for a moment, and she ran. Tsuguto asked if everything would be okay. Lori said everything would be fine, everything would be fine. A few minutes later, the girl returned and apologized for making them wait. She put a token on the table and asked if she could take the token in her hand and squeeze it. The man did it, and the girl told him to hold it like that. For a few seconds, everything would be fine soon. She already told him that everything would be fine. Now 5 minutes have passed. Tsuguto asked how much longer. The girl said it would take even longer. Yes, there is only a little. After left 5 more minutes passed, Tsuguto asked if it still hadn't arrived yet. The girl herself started to get tense and said it might take a little longer. Tsuguto couldn't take it anymore and asked how much more he needed, but then someone told him that it was activated accurately and the account registration was complete. Some Windows systems appeared in front of him. Then he asked what it was. The girl sighed and said how relieved she was to see that she had successfully registered. What she is seeing now is the detailed soul, or whatever its name is. The status contains a detailed explanation of his soul, so let him not worry because he can see the indicators that Tsuguto sees in all of his characteristics. His name and race are written there, his gender and age of 17 are also shown. His level is 8 and his status is cursed. His HP is 224 out of 224, MP is 1 out of 1, his strength is 11, agility 9, intelligence 10, and willpower 12. He also has abilities. He has a physical level of 2, language level 4, throwing level 1, and exchange level 2. He also has a unique ability which is a level 1 evil eye in his account. It is level 1 and his log system is also level 1. Where she is told to look at his mark, Tsuguto. His name is written on the tag and he thinks that so far nothing has been written above it. And now his name is there. The girl tells him that in order to see his status, he needs to fill his own token. Tsuguto says, "Fill it." The girl says, "Yes." The meaning pour out your own mana points to the equipment. They call unique equipment like status artifact tokens. They have a unique aura that resembles the soul of a creature called mana, which acts as its container, collecting mana points and placing them in. The mana put into this container is called charging. She asks him to squeeze the token and wait, while all the mana points that fill his body flow into the token, thus filling it. In other words, he will have time to fill it. Tsuguto token. He pays attention to the mana points. And realizing that he had very few of them, the girl smiled and said that the caption said it added 10, and this mana was added by the token. If he ran away from there, the artifact would automatically appear dead, so he had to be careful. He asked what minus meant, and the girl was very surprised and said she had never heard of it before. MP got a negative value. Tsuguto said clearly and asked what the meaning of status was. Then the girl smiled again and said that the status field showed its condition. For example, it would show whether she was poisoned or paralyzed. Tsuguto paid attention to his status and thought about what being cursed meant. He noticed his status and thought about whether being cursed meant what he thought. He couldn't ask her because it would be the same as admitting that she was right. The girl said that about her level, but Tsuguto didn't listen to her at all. Next, the girl finally said that she would explain one important detail to him. Tsuguto was surprised and asked what important detail the girl was talking about. He looked at her face, which he thought was so beautiful, and a system window appeared in front of him, which said that this girl's name was Saraya. She was a member of the Adventurer Guild, and her clan was not sure. Tsuguto was very surprised, and the girl smiled and said that it would happen again. Her name is Saraya, and she has always dreamed of introducing herself in this way. This is a very important feature called the name tag box among other operators. He simply focuses on her. She will be able to determine her target's name. Tsuguto thought that's how they quickly realized that she was the girl without a badge. She said that's why this function is needed to identify this red name. It is also the reason why it is considered the most important function. She also told him about this red name. When someone with a mark kills someone else, their name box turns red. Anyone with a red name becomes a target for oppression without exception. Once they are targeted and they give their token, they will become a respected guild adventurer for it. Tsuguto asked if pressing it means killing, and also getting a red name that the girl told him about. It's only when he presses the red color name. Does the color of his name remain unchanged? Tsuguto thought so. Now he understands why she is trying so hard to persuade him to hurry up and make a token with this system. Simply by completing it with a token, it eliminates the risk of being killed yesterday. If Lori hadn't intervened, he thought there was a good chance Nalt would have actually killed him. Then Lori pulled his arm, and Tsuguto asked what its function was. Lori said she really needed to go to the toilet, and that he had to register to become an adventurer. Saria felt happy and said she knew it, so he planned to register as an adventurer along with the new one. Lori responded to her and said yes, he planned to do this. The girl ran somewhere again and said that in this case, if she would prepare her documents now. After all this happened, they returned to their tavern again and were now able to enter the dining room. Tsuguto remembered the man's words telling her that she could use the cafeteria if she had a token. Now she thought she should definitely ask him to stay in his room since the nameless one was suspicious. And the only thing that would cause trouble is the issue. And this is because it is very likely that he is the person who did not get the badge to hide his red name. He might be a kind houseguard despite his appearance because he allowed them to stay and did not drive them away. He told Lori to eat meat. But Lori said he ate meat yesterday. Tsuguto asked if there was any logic in not eating it today just because he ate it yesterday. He thought that now everything was clear from the beginning. He thought it was purely physical that he couldn't eat meat, but when he turned around, he just pushed the plate of meat towards him. The girl hated meat, so she took her salad bowl and said that was enough. Let her give her salad too, and now she was full, so she could take everything for herself, or that's what she wanted to say. But if she admitted, he would help her eat it. Why did his wife want him to be an adventurer, or did he become silent for a moment before saying that it was because he wanted to be an adventurer? Tsuguto said that then he might become one of them. Lori said that she couldn't be a slave and because of that. Tsuguto couldn't be a surprised slave and asked if she really was a slave, where she told him that he would see her at the window named what she did the Adventure Guild and saw that she was a debt slave owned by Lisaheimer. He asked if she was a debt slave and she said yes. She couldn't be an adventurer until she paid it off. A debt slave, until their debt is paid off. A slave cannot conduct any business with anyone except their master, or they are forbidden from doing so. And that encompasses not only money and goods but everything a slave handles. That is, it applies to labor as well. Tsuguto said he understand. She wants him to be an adventurer instead of him getting a job because of the reward. Lori said she also wants to help him. He has to defeat the monster. He asked her what happened. He wants to tell him that they have to do it, become adventurers together. Lori nodded at him. After that she looked at him with a sad look and said that she wants to climb higher and become a stronger. Tsuguto, remembering the words of a girl from the Adventurous Guild, who said that level is an indicator of their spirit volume. He thinks Lori's desire for strength has grown within him since he heard about this level from her. He understands the risks that come with being an adventurer, and he's sure this girl knows them too. So why does this desire consume him even more than his desire to return to Japan? He wonders why he wants it to be stronger. Lori says it's bad, she's too ambitious. She wants to become stronger so she can hit them hard. Tsuguto hears this from her and laughs loudly. Lori says he's rude, but he can't stop laughing, thinking that this smart little girl's words are true. He really wants to drink that blonde idiot on the bus, but he can't because he's weak, he doesn't have enough strength, he's a coward. The girl in front of him notices how restless and awkward he is. She reaches out to him and says she also wants to become stronger starting today. They are partners now, and she really hopes they can get along. Lori takes her hand and agrees to become stronger with him. Lori tells him she wants him to show his status. They are partners now, so she needs to know. Tsuguto says maybe she's right, but it also applies to him. Afterwards, they exchanged their tokens where he checked all of his characteristics and saw that he had an adventurer rank F position, which she also saw his parliament member status, which was one of a kind, saying that he was cursed and entered a unique skill written on him with evil cursed eyes level 1. She was impressed and said that the evil eye was an extraordinary skill that attacks only one with this vision, which is also a unique skill. He was just something she could think of. Unfortunately, she was only suffering from F rank with only 1 MP. She asked him what he knew about the curse. She said the curse had different effects, so she was not sure there were only 2 ways to lift the curse. The method used was the purification of their holy church. They attack the curse itself using holy power. However, major side effects will remain even if the curse is successfully broken, and in the case that it fails instead, the curse could worsen and kill him. And then Tsuguto said it was too risky. He said there was another way he had to defeat the one who cursed him, and she thought there was a connection with his evil eye. She asked him what he should do if he himself was the source of the curse, but Lori did not answer him. Tsuguto said he didn't know, but then he could finally see her characteristics and finally said it was written in the system window. Her name was Lori, her race was Pecorin, her gender was female, 9 years old, level 6. There was nothing written in her status. Her HP was 152 out of 152, MP 200 out of 200, Strength 6, Agility 7, Intelligence 10, Endurance 13. She also had a skill level 1 in Wolf, and 2 in Noise Detector, 1 level 2 Intuition, 1 level 1 Carver, 1 level 1 Magic Detector, 1 level 1 Magic Language Skill, level 2 Heat Exchanger, level 1 Cooking. Tsuguto thinking why her endurance is higher than him. There are 12 other characteristics suitable for children's age. However, he has a larger amount and more skills than her. He told her that he does indeed rely on his noise detector where she said that he can rely on it. They have already entered the cave and said that now they will chase the monster 10 minutes ago. Tsuguto asked her if they could try digging 2 buckets today, but then Lori suggested to her, how about hunting monsters to level up? She asked him for it and really wanted to start hunting today. Lori agreed, but Tsuguto refused and said no because it's too reckless. First, they have to prepare their equipment and gather information. They will start only after full preparation. Meanwhile, they have to come to me and make money. In fact, they only have 1 lark left. Does she understand where she's going with her? She said it's too slow. He told her that it's more gradual. Lori couldn't hold back any longer and shouted that the bad guys wouldn't wait for anyone. Tsuguto agreed with her and thought that everything was moving too slowly. At that moment, he asked Lori if she knew how to strengthen the monsters inside the labyrinth. Lori explained that it was an underground prison with weak E-ranked monsters. They would be facing monsters like big rats and goblins. Lori was very skilled at detecting the presence of monsters using her ability called noise detection. Thanks to her, they were able to predict Danalt's appearance yesterday. Tsuguto asked how many monsters they would exactly be facing, and Lori answered that if there were a few of them, it would be easy. Tsuguto smiled and felt relieved. They could ignore them and just hunt down individuals. Then he said that the next item they needed was a weapon. Lori stepped forward and raised her shovel, explaining that it would be her unknown weapon. Tsuguto wasn't sure how to react to this, so he said it was perfect. Now he felt there was no reason to refuse. He said he was fine with it. They then went to the underground prison. Now they were inside and facing difficulties. There were many branches there, and they didn't know which way to go. Tsuguto immediately said that the underground prison had turned into a labyrinth. He knew the path on the right and called it the garbage hole. He asked Lori what she wanted to see, and they both went there. However, when they arrived, they didn't find anything. Tsuguto asked if there really was nothing there. Lori quietly threw the stone in the middle, and the floor collapsed completely. He said that all kinds of lights were broken. Tornadoes and monster corpses were thrown here. Its popular name is garbage hole. If he steps on it, the floor will collapse like a trap, and he will fall into a continuously functioning hole that resembles an underground prison wall. Returning to this phenomenon, This reconstruction is a deadly trap with a 0% chance of survival. Tsuguto looked down and thought that he couldn't even see the bottom. He said it was amazing and suggested taking a different path. He asked if it was really unsafe, then they would be lost. Worried, he said yes, he just heard something, and said that the monster had been found. Tsuguto asked what could be true, where he was, and how many were there. He himself thought that this was his first battle with a monster and he was too nervous, but Lori had already rushed forward and said that he was indeed here, so they should attack. He said to calm down. They wouldn't achieve anything if they panicked. He just needed to stay calm. But Lori said it was impossible because he was already here. Tsuguto approached and saw this monster, and noticed that it had pointed ears and green skin. Tsuguto quickly realized that the goblin monster had already charged towards them, freezing in place due to shock and fear. He told himself that he had to act, so he lifted and swung his pickaxe without hesitation, hitting the goblin right on the head. He thought, okay, this is a huge mess of iron, throwing it away as he moved towards them at such speed. But the goblin was not dead yet, blue blood flowing, and he didn't have time to react properly, so the goblin immediately attacked him. Tsuguto became scared, thinking it was a creature biting him, not wanting to devour him. But then Lori came to his aid, easily. However, monsters of Urorifish shows to the small merchants. Oto thought that Lord Holdring that the Tarakara tribe had that all welcomed the god into the eye with his poo as if he was diving as left when who was alone. Tsuglino Ki ringed herself to a place and where docket and only hidden right eye remained. Especially the Zern were already like in family time at that moment, thus robbing the monster of its sight. After that, he stood up, took his pickaxe, and delivered a decisive blow. The system informing him that he had gained experience points, and his level had increased from 8 to 9. His HP was now 219 out of 256, MP was 2 out of 33, Strength was 13, Agility was 10, Intelligence was all, and Endurance was now 14. Tsuguto was very happy about this, and thought that the light apparently increased his strength by 2 points, which was enough for such an effect. He looked at Lori, who raised his hand with his shovel, and thought that he was behaving like a hero. He asked what was going on, looking very pleased. Lori said that after leveling up, Tsuguto claimed that it wasn't really him. He was great. I said that he is indeed the coolest person in the world right now, and he asked about himself. Tsuguto said that he also leveled up, and asked what they should do with the goblin's body. Lori said he would tell him everything now, just let him call his master. Tsuguto said of course he wouldn't do that but let him tell them everything. Lori took out the small knife and said that the ear could be sold at the guild. Tsuguto asked for it to be done as proof that they killed him properly. War said yes, that's how it is. He carried the knife with him all the time at work, saying there was only one and it was for cutting hair. Tsuguto told him to remember to clean it thoroughly afterwards. All right everyone, all right, now he will explain their plan further. After that, they left the underground prison and immediately went to their screens. They received 2.204 larks. Tsuguto looked very happy, staring at her who looked very offended, and asked how long he would sulk. Lori said that's just how he is, not sulking. Tsuguto said he knew he couldn't blame the monster anymore, it wasn't appearing anymore. She said they should go deeper into what he told them. How many times he had told them that he was blind to delve deeper. It's very dangerous. He thought about his plan. He had to be careful. This place is great. Even if monsters appear they can always escape into the tunnels, said the goblin faster than expected. So far there are monsters that can mine the underground prison walls and extract a ton of magical ore. Isn't that bad? He handed over the money to him and said that this is his share, so they better finish for today, and he asked where he would spend the night today. He said he would stay at the hotel he paid 3 silver pieces for, which also includes breakfast and lunch. It's really cheap, then agree with him and say that it's really cheap. He also thought about staying there, but he told him that it's impossible because this establishment is only for slaves. He was surprised and thought that the companies were indeed only for slaves. If he thinks so, then slaves can trade without permission from their masters. He asked if they needed a place to spend the night, so he went back to the merchant named Rail. He greeted them and said he was glad the woman survived. Tsuguto said so, all thanks to him. He turned to Lori and said that this man was the one who told him about the shop where she was healed. She bowed to him and thanked him. He smiled and told her not to worry. Tsuguto asked him to give him dried fruits worth 1 silver piece when the track was completed. After collecting everything Tsuguto asked for, Lori handed her the fruits. Lori looked at him questioningly, but did what he was asked. Tsuguto gave him the dried fruits he bought. Surprised, Lori asked if he really gave them to him. He answered yes, it's a gift. Tomorrow they will go deeper, so she needs to eat to prepare. Lori thanked him, then they said goodbye and Lori left the track. He asked Tsuguto about this. It's a gift, didn't Tsuguto say yes? It's just because he couldn't trade directly with the slave by buying dried fruits and giving them to him. It won't be a problem. The track informed him that the nearby shops have permission to sell things to the slave, which he knew was true. He really wanted to do something cool. Tsuguto felt awkward and said no. Lori laughed and said it's all good, miss, she will appreciate them. Meanwhile, one of Danalt's colleagues stormed into Danalt's house and asked why he was sitting locked up. He found Danalt wearing his best clothes. The man asked what happened, so he was the one he was thinking about at that time, wearing his leather clothes, said Danalt. He told him to be quiet. He would find this fool without a badge. The next day, the hunt in the basement seemed to have arrived. They had just come out of there and asked him why he was still angry. He hadn't said a word today. They went to an underground prison, level E. It's a magical cave, this one. It's a small underground dungeon. It only consists of 5 floors. The elite monsters found on this floor are too low level. The only dangerous ones would be the great poisonous spiders and the blue killer fish. But that's how it is located on the lower floor. With this knowledge, they set out to hunt that day. But there they were attacked by a large rat. Still, they managed to defeat it because after that, there was a notification from the system saying that he had received experience points. His physical skill level increased from 2 to 3, and his overall level increased from 9 to 10. Tsuguto was surprised and asked if it really died when he thought about it. Lori was already sitting in front of him. She looked at his feet, saw his shoes, and said he was wearing different shoes from yesterday. Tsuguto said that meant she noticed. She raised her head and said that it seemed like reality. Yesterday, he went to the weapon warehouse next to the guild. He walked past the weapon warehouse, and he think it's very expensive here. He couldn't afford to buy all this with his budget. Then a man approached him and said that if he was willing, if he was ready to part with his shoes. Then Tsuguto paid attention to his shoes and thought about it. These were really his shoes. His sneakers were dirty. They just became a rare item in this world. So he said, okay. But in return for this, he pointed to the shoes standing on the counter. These are U.S.C shielder boots. They look like a piece of armor with great durability because their skin is crossed with rare monster skin and magical ore. But if he uses them with their constitutional abilities, they become a very good weapon, and meanwhile he receives some more bonuses. He says that if you think like that, it's some sneakers that aren't even worth 5,000 yen, and back like that, he also has current equipment that he has a universal belt made of dragon leather that costs 10,800 larks, which he throws a set of 3 knives and costs 900 larks, and he has Yinxian's shielder boots that cost 28,500 larks, which he says, it's unfair if only Tsuguto fights. Then he remembers and thinks that it must be him, only asking him what he has not raised his level today. Lori mentioned that he had not considered it. Despite the fact that his ability to detect enemies brings significant advantages, it does not provide him with the necessary expertise. He stated that he would eliminate their numbers and finish them off. Lori continued with this strategy and then fell silent. Tsuguto inquired about the sudden change, to which Rie responded that she felt like there was something present. Tsuguto carefully scanned the surroundings and concluded that there was nothing there, although he also harbored suspicions of something peculiar. Consequently, he instructed the girl to step back and readied the shovel. Taking matters into his own hands, he advanced forward, contemplating that Lori's detector had never failed before. At that moment, he glanced up and spotted a large poisonous spider poised directly above Lori's head, ready to strike. Tsuguto swiftly rushed towards the girl, fearing he would not reach her in time. As the spider descended upon Lori, Tsuguto anticipated a gruesome outcome, only to be astonished when the spider was suddenly halted. Lori had managed to impale the spider with his shovel, emerging unscathed. As they continued on their journey, they encountered more challenges and obstacles that tested their skills and teamwork. Tsuguto and his companion learned to communicate effectively and trust each other's instincts in order to overcome each new threat they faced. They developed a strategy for dealing with different types of enemies, utilizing their strengths and weaknesses to their advantage. Despite the dangers they faced, Tsuguto and his companion found themselves growing stronger and more confident with each battle they won. They learned from their mistakes and used their experiences to become better fighters. Tsuguto's companion even discovered a new ability that helped them in their quest, thanks to the lessons learned from their encounter with the spider. As they continued on their journey, Tsuguto and his companion forged a strong bond that would carry them through even the toughest challenges. They knew that as long as they had each other's backs, they could face anything that came their way. And with their newfound skills and determination, they were ready to take on whatever the world threw at them. It completely depends on Lori. It's a big mistake that they have to be prepared for if avoidance doesn't help. He told her that he thinks they need an antidote, and their potion should be ready. He stood up and said it's nothing. They managed to make money today. Let him handle the purchase for now. It's still early, but they have to finish it for today. Then Lori also stood up and started waving her shovel, tense and thinking she was practicing her swing. So, she decided not to tell him to go monster hunting alone today, just because he leveled up and he asked him if he understood. Riri pouted and said she wouldn't do it. Tsuguto casually said that's good. Then they'll see each other tomorrow when he's gone far enough. The girl said she won't go monster hunting, but she'll go mining for ore, so don't waste time, and she immediately went to do it. After a while, she had already dug up a lot and said that this is her power at level 9. If it continues like this, she will dig up a ton and pay off all her debts, and then she can live in a hotel with Tsuguto. After that, she started counting her catch and said this will be enough for her for one night, and it's already enough for 2 people. Some men approached her and one of them said she looked happy. It was Danalt and his partner. Meanwhile, Tsuguto returned to the old woman who helped Lori. He told her it was too much. The woman's name was Agat, and she was a high-ranking merchant. Agat said that this was the market price, and if it wasn't like that she would let him go. Tsuguto thought that the gift he received, the mission to destroy magic or the underground monster prison he took from the guild, was worth 7,020 larks. This meant that the venomous fang of a large spider was considered a rare material. So he decided to sell it to Agat to earn some extra money. But her offer for the fang and the paralyzing potion were each worth 1,000 larks, and the health potion was worth 2,000 larks for 2 people. After thinking it through, he told Agat that he bought 2 pieces of each potion, and because she charged so much, he asked her for a discount. Did she have a hearing problem? Agat asked if he actually behaved like this when he asked for something that would give him a discount. Tsuguto said, "Okay, I'm just bankrupt now. He doesn't need to give me a discount." But she just said, "But these potions are for Lori, remember? Isn't she the girl who got a lot of damage from that powerful venomous spider today? She can't ignore this danger." He agreed with her. After all, he couldn't put a girl like that in danger. The old woman wasn't someone who could witness a girl like her die. That meant she would give him a discount, right? Agat quickly gathered everything for him, and then he kicked it from there. Tsuguto stood on the street and thought that everything cost 6,000 larks, which means he sold Lori's potion at half price. He said he was gentle and long-lived after the life he had on the streets, and thought that maybe he should spend the rest of his money on dried fruits for Lori. Well, then he pushed away this thought and said that he should leave it. But then he remembered Lori's expression when he bought her dried fruits, and said that he thought a few dried fruits wouldn't hurt. While Danalt told him not to be too cautious, he didn't come today for the ore. He stopped and told her that if she listened to his proposal now, she no longer had to bring it or the black-haired man with her. Without this token now, Lori Rose stood up and gripped her shovel in her hand with all her strength and said she wouldn't do it. Then Danalt approached her and hit her in the face as hard as he could, saying that the girl even flew. He asked again where this idiot Lori saw his spilled dried fruit bag, thinking that these were the dried fruits Tsuguto gave him. Danout started stopping on all of them and told him to speak up or he didn't want to break him. Lori broke the straight record and said she wouldn't tell him anything she already had. Tsuguto went back to his room and decided to try these dried fruits. He said it was nothing, just some fruit. Maybe he should ask Lori about this tomorrow. While Danout had already defeated the girl to the point where she couldn't move anymore, all of this happened while he was chatting about trivial things. The gap survival rate was 0%, garbage hole, and Lori was thrown into it. The boy dreamed that one day he could become a famous adventurer in the world with an impossible dream in his heart. He worked tirelessly, putting in hard work in his job and learning every day. Eventually, he reached a point where he became a skilled adventurer and also found an irreplaceable companion. He wondered what would happen one day when they were attacked by a cyclops, a giant one-eyed monster that suddenly appeared. While the others were busy destroying goblins, this monster had an extraordinary and unnatural power, with a black skin variation. It all started with the fact that a warrior walked in front of it to protect others. His legs were torn like a puppet being pulled by an archer's arrow, but his hands began to rot and fell along with his own hands, and the boy, the same man who pulled out his sword from its sheath. I felt the gaze of my companions who were with me. He just ran away, and his companion never returned. He drowned his torment with alcohol and took out all his anger on people. Finally, he realized that it was easier to make money by cheating than by swinging a sword at someone he would rob tomorrow. This person had a dark appearance, like a boy living the most possible dream of sowing the day where he only witnessed people dying, and his name was Danout. The next day, Tsuguto had to meet Lori, whom he entered the cave with, and think about it. Besides, he wasn't here, he thought. The morning meeting had already started, but all indications were that he hadn't shown up yet. However, he was sure he would wake up in the underground prison to start working, but he wondered where he had gone. He noticed a man and, after analyzing him, realized that his name was temporarily dead, and his job was as a slave owned by Lee. Tsuguto thought he was like Lori, as he also belonged to this person. He approached the man and asked if he happened to see a friend and a girl nearby. Her name was Lori. The man hesitated but didn't say anything. Tsuguto said he knew something, and the man looked down and said that if he was interested in this girl yesterday with Danout. Tsuguto interrupted this man and asked him why he mentioned it. The man said that yesterday this girl had a fight with him and was thrown into the abyss where Tsuguto was. He was just terrified and asked what happened and where she was left. And then what did this man say? He didn't know. Sometime later, only Danout and his friends came out, but the girl was no longer with them. Tsuguto became very angry and grabbed the man by his clothes and told him not to mess with his mind. This happened right in front of him, the man said so. It had nothing to do with him, but it seemed like he cared. Wasn't he the one who asked Danout something like where the unnamed one was, and because he didn't say anything, they started hitting him, and because of that, if something happened to him, it was his fault. Tsuguto just felt terrified and thought it was his fault, being left behind by this man and apparently going off to find Lori. He thought that inside the underground mining prison, there were 5 branching paths built like a complicated maze, but the reality was that each of these parts ended in a dead end. He remembered exactly what the adventurer told him in the guild the day before, so without a doubt, he must be somewhere in front of him. He arrived there and started calling his name loudly inside this monster-filled underground prison. At that time, the man who had just spoken to him recently happened to be at the shop and reported to Danout and his friend. One of his friends asked if he said he got the mark. The man said yes. It seemed like that was the reason he was unnamed, not because he was hiding his red name. He encountered the underground prison with a serious look. This man was given money and told that everything was fine now. He could go. This friend turned to Danout and asked if it was all true. What would he do now? Danout stood up and said they had to go. His friend said that if they went underground, they won't be able to go back to A, even though the monster will eat them if they decide to go. But Danout doesn't really care, he repeats, and says that they have done it to go. His friend thinks something very strange has been happening since the day he met that black-haired man who behaved very strangely at first sight. This man may seem like an ugly person, but he dares to swear even though he is sharp. His mind always tries his best not to take risks, but yesterday he took a risk because of the slave. He was certainly having fun, but he was afraid until he killed this dark-haired man. He wouldn't be himself. He woke up another friend and said they had slept enough for the job, and this time their target was a nameless man. This friend said it. But he is nameless. Isn't this dangerous? They told him not to be afraid because it seems he is not that dangerous, said the man. Is that true? When will he get it? He will have fun and finish him off like an innocent lamb, while Tsuguto handles all the monsters that block his way. Now he is just beside himself. The anger system tells him that he has received experience points and his level has been raised from 11 to 12. He kept searching for Lori but couldn't find him. Right now his condition showed that he was cursed, paralyzed and poisoned. But now he didn't care about that. His condition was simply terrible, and he thought he needed to drink a potion to restore his health. He took one and thought about it. He only had 2 left, but what if Lori got hurt in 2? 2 potions wouldn't be enough, so he didn't drink this potion and continued. He thought this was the wrong path out of the 5 paths he had to take. He checked 4 on the left, 3 of them turned out to be wrong in any case. There was only 1 left that he would search for Lori here. He must be here. He was in the next hallway. The 3 previous sections blocked his way with walls, and the next one would surely happen. This time it must be right. But here again, there was a dead end, and he thought this might not be the question. The 4th one passed. The last one might be serious. But then he remembered what Lori told him, that he knew about the far right path, which next to it was the garbage hole. Tsuguto felt horrified thinking about it. They were just joking, but it was true. The only path left was the one there. Yes, he had to go. He didn't know what he would do if he wasn't there, but he had to go there. And then, he met Danalt and his friends. He started to look at them carefully. One of Danalt's friends named Riot, an adventurer like Danalt. Danalt was a high-level adventurer and the other friend was Garnon, also an adventurer. Tsuguto thought their names were weird and asked them. They placed Lori where they all feared Tsuguto's appearance because now he was covered in blood and had wild eyes. Garnon thought it was a completely different story. Just a red name was not enough, but he also had a killer aura. Tsuguto walked straight towards Danalt and ordered him to tell him where Lori was. Danalt was also afraid now but still said that he killed him, and if he approached, the same fate awaited him. Tsuguto thought that because their nameplates were white, he had hope. He prayed that it was just a lie. He didn't believe they killed him, but now he knew how to kill them without damaging his color system. He told him that he had gained experience points and also unlocked a new skill called magic detection and magic mastery. He thought all he had to do was kill the target. Afterward, he removed the mark he discarded. Danalt thought he had removed his badge, which meant the murder was done. We talked about 2 friends. Danalt approached him. Danalt told Tsuguto he had a health bar. He has to break his curse, and then he will forgive him. Tsuguto told him to die. Danalt said he would apologize once the curse was lifted, but I didn't hear anyone from Tsuguto again and kept it. He repeated that he had to die. Danalt couldn't stand it and attacked him, but it didn't affect Tsuguto at all. He reached for it, Danalt in his head, and said that now he wouldn't run like before. Danalt started to see his past, and his ex-friend tried to release his hand from his head. He thought that if he did it, it wouldn't be his hand that would die, but his hand couldn't move. Is this sucker really stronger than him? If he's just as strong, then in his best years he would easily get rid of him. If only he could get rid of him, why is he standing in front of him? Will he meet him if he doesn't steal his magic ore? Why is he here? Why did he stop practicing? Why did you stop being an adventurer? Why did he stop chasing his dreams? Why did he leave his beloved friends? He regrets it so much. He can't drive them away and leave them there. He betrayed his dreams and he truly regrets it. After that, Danalt fell to the ground while this man was deep in his regret. His life ended. Tsuguto thought his companion was killed and it was that idiot. He who said it was impossible. They tried to escape from there, but Tsuguto didn't allow them to do so. He immediately killed one of them and injured both of his legs. He tried to reach for his potion, thinking he needed it faster. He had to hurry instead. But at that moment, Tsuguto realized this and started hitting him. He thinking that he didn't even think about saving their lives. He's not one of those who wants to kill them. But then this person shouted that the girl is still alive. They didn't kill her, they hurt her, but then threw her into the trash without finishing her off, so she's still alive. He thought there was no chance of survival, but she told him that there's a possibility she's still alive. So she suggested that he look for her. It's only him who thinks that. This is the only thing he can do. He continued to tell Tsuguto that even if they couldn't find a way out, they would definitely make it. He thought to himself that he didn't care anymore. If he could go back home, he would lie and throw away his weapon and walk there to get his belongings. Darnan was happy and thought that he had gained her trust, meaning she wouldn't kill him. Tsuguto told him to wake up because they had to go. He immediately took him to the garbage hole and threw him near the edge. Darnan was scared and thought it was very dangerous. Tsuguto called him and asked what's wrong with his HP. He had to tell him the maximum value and how much he currently had. Darnan said the maximum was 322, and he currently had 216. Then, Tsuguto used his skill again and asked the man to look at his characteristics. After that, the man did it and said that her maximum had decreased. Tsuguto thought it could be understood, synchronized with the previous moment when he raised the token indicator -MP. The cursed status disappeared, but now it means that the cursed evil eye ability is to reduce as many points as possible from the maximum MP when subtracted from the maximum HP of the victim. He tested this, but that's not the reason he keeps doing it. He's alive, he said. Even if he falls from here, he'll definitely survive. Those are his words, not what the man is thinking. If he falls there, he will definitely not survive, but he says he will. So Tsuguto pushes him straight into this pit and tells him to prove it. The man thinks he's serious, not crazy, to kill someone after taking a token. It is waits for 3 full minutes afterwards, which he checks his characteristics and thinks he still doesn't have a red name. He jumps and thinks he's still alive, so he's worried he must still be alive. There's a good chance in this case he could go without hesitation. He jumps straight into this hole and tells himself he must not close his eyes because he can't miss any choices. He'll definitely find Lori. Tsuguto. He falls straight down and finds himself in the water. He thinks it's clear that if he falls from a height, the only safe place to land is in the water. It's also very far down here, so there's something strange. And a big fish bites his leg. He looked at it and wondered if it was really a blue killer fish. He took out his knife and stuck it in its head, killing it. He thought he had killed it, but it couldn't breathe, so he rushed to the surface. He looked around and thought that this place was a lake in an underground cave or flooded catacombs, and the way out was very far from here, not far from him. He noticed the man. He had previously thrown away this man who was attacked by some fish at once and couldn't get rid of them. Tsuguto immediately recognized the man and thought it was him. He heard the sound of the blue killer fish being considered the strongest monster in magic or caves. He had to get out, otherwise he realized the dry land was not far from him and headed straight there. Now he was on the surface, and the man was already dead. He saw it on his status window and realized that his color was still white, which meant he was dead because of the blue killer fish and above Lori. But he decided to distance himself from his own bad thoughts and went in search of her. He thought he was simple and had no other way. He had to be here somewhere on this floor, which was completely different from the previous one. If there were blue killer fish here, it meant he was on floor 5. No, this was not a floor but something more dangerous. On his journey there were large rocks blocking his entire view, and there was also a large group of blind people. So, he needed to make sure he didn't miss anything here. Then he stopped and thought about what this massive stone was. But he still found a small opening here and thought that he would crawl through from the side. He decided to crawl in, and then he immediately saw a small red mold, thinking it was Lori's mold. He touched it and realized that it was dry. He walked further along this mold and then noticed someone. It was Lori, injured and very scared. He told him that whoever was there, he wouldn't tell them where Tsuguto was. He wouldn't tell them, let them hurt him with these words. Tsuguto himself became enchanted, very surprised. He approached her and called her name. She ran towards him and hugged him. He immediately took out the potion and told her to drink it quickly. He asked her not to cry, but she shed tears. But she said no, she's not weak so she won't cry. Tsuguto smiled and thought that's not the problem, that he didn't allow her to speak, he just needed to leave him alone. It must have been very painful, difficult, and scary, but this girl experienced all this horror even after falling into such a situation where she was able to survive, and he protected her until the end. Now Tsuguto couldn't stand it, and started crying alone. He agreed with her and said that he agreed. She's really an amazing girl. He couldn't help himself and sat next to her. Lori walked towards him and placed her hand on his head and said it's all okay. He will keep it a secret, thinking that it seems like he is still not strong enough, but his partner says that he will keep it a secret in this matter. Now he can admit his weakness so that when he wakes up, he immediately becomes one of a kind. Once it awoke, it had already emerged as something entirely unique. Unlike any others of its kind, it possessed an extraordinary power, and it would use that power without restraint. Manipulating, destroying, consuming, there was no question about it. It was unquestionably the ruler. And there, a menacingly wide-open eye stared back. After everything that happened, Lori fell asleep and had a strange dream where she was praised. People looked at her with joy. They told each other that she was the hero who shouted victory and pointed her sacred sword towards the sky. She looked like a goddess at that moment. Lori woke up until she fell asleep in Tsuguto's lap. She saw it. He opened his eyes and asked if she was really awake. Apparently Lori had not recovered from her sleep and said that she was a female hero. But then, she started to remember all the events and thought that she was thrown into the garbage. After she had to go through all the bad things that she didn't have a chance to close her eyes to. Since then, she slept like a dead person, but it seemed like the potion was working, and after resting she seemed to be back to normal, thinking she could sleep at least for now. Tsuguto also stood up and said that he would now stand guard and they would explore the dungeon now. Lori looked at him in astonishment and asked what they were going to explore. Tsuguto agreed and said that they wouldn't be able to climb up here anymore. They needed to find another way out from here. He looked around and thought that they had fallen from the initial level of the garbage crack that entered the flooded area. But they couldn't reach that height, or even reach the first level in this case. They would have to find a way out on this level. It might promise them a 0% chance of survival. He told her they couldn't just sit here. Their only supplies were dried meat and slowly becoming wet fruits. Lori looked at the meat with horror and immediately said that she would eat the dried fruit instead, but Tsuguto didn't allow it and said that he would eat the meat too, or else he would die of exhaustion. Then Lori quickly jumped up and said that they had to find a way out of here immediately. Tsuguto thought that this girl was more amazed by the meat than their current situation. He asked her why she came back. Lori said that they needed to check this path first, a very dangerous path for them. The man is waiting there. Tsuguto looks at him wondering and asking how big is it, meaning the monster. Not Yuri trying to show how healthy this monster is and saying that he is like this. He is very big. Seigo says it's big enough, and he himself thinks so, trying his best to show him like this, maybe even because of careless concerns. He remains cautious. He walks towards him and puts his hand on his head and asks, why not look around if there is something dangerous there? Then surveillance of them will allow us to do it, come up with a retaliatory action as it said, but then they have to do everything slowly. Tsuguto says, okay, don't let him worry. After 20 minutes, they reach a crossroads. Tsuguto stops and asks where they should go next. I show him the way and tell him where to go, to the left. Another 10 minutes pass, but they still don't get anything except making it much further from Tsuguto. He hears something and wonders what sound it is. He crawls closer to take a closer look and thinks that what he sees inside is undoubtedly a Cyclops monster. What is this thing? What he does is he goes crazy, but then right in front of his eyes, this Cyclops catches fish with his hands and starts eating it. And it seems that not only that, the Cyclops itself is a Cyclops and the blue killer fish devour each other. Tsuguto grimaces in horror and wonders what is happening. This atrocity is happening right now. It's disgusting, but it's not necessarily bad. The problem is if they all fall down like this, but then Cyclops does something strange and blows into the water around him, so now he stands on dry land. Tsuguto quickly grabs Lori and pulls her towards him, and after that they are covered by waves. Lori's throat starts to clear after that. Tsuguto says that he swallowed sand and asks if he's okay. And what is this magic actually? Bori says no, monsters can't use magic, which means it might be an ability. And above all, Cyclops shouldn't be found here. And black skin is also not typical for them. This is a subspecies. Tsuguto is tense but tells her that whatever it is, it seems very dangerous, and there seems to be no way out of this area, so they have to go through it. Lori agrees with him and says that they should do it so they don't waste their time. They quickly get up and go in search of a way out. 5 minutes have passed, and they approach the intersection again. Tsuguto asks him if he has checked what's on the left side. Worried, he says no, but then he invites him to the left. That's what they do. Another 20 minutes pass. They return to the intersection where they said there was one more fork here. Tsuguto stopped and thought that the path forward led to the left and back to the right. Lori paid attention to what he thought and told him it was nothing. Then he invited him to go left. Another 10 minutes passed. Then he took Lori and ran somewhere ahead. Tsuguto hurried to catch up with him and shouted at him, why was he suddenly running? But what he saw surprised him. He couldn't believe his eyes. There was a treasure right in front of them. They were thrilled and said it was indeed true. Lori said it was a treasure chest, and they were very big. Tsuguto was still shocked and wondered if this was real. There was clearly something wrong here. The intricately decorated handmade chest suddenly appeared in front of them. This couldn't be happening. It was all so unusual. Someone put it here. He couldn't even consider the possibility that this was a natural phenomenon, but Lori had already done it. She opened one of the chests and started searching inside. Tsuguto asked why. Had she just opened it? What if it was a trap? Lori said it was, but they remained silent. Okay, so everything was fine in this chest. They found a dagger. Tsuguto said so. She said there are still 2 closed chests, so the game is fair from the start. But Tsuguto told her to stand aside and he would open it himself. But there was only 1 ring inside. He said it looked very lonely. After that, he went to the last chest and said apparently this was the last one. The last chest contained a shovel, which made Lori very happy as his eyes gleamed with joy. And he said that fate was like a knife and a ring and a shovel, right? Lori was crazy about it, but honestly, what a disappointing loot system. It said it was a masterful steel dagger, and it added one while complimenting what he saw next, surprising him. It was an artifact, a special tool that had an area called the soul, which allowed you to collect mana abilities individually built into each of these things. The soul allowed its owner to freely use them. It was a valuable item owned by any adventurer who desired to have it. A masterful steel dagger plus a cursed level 2 gold ring, plus 2 level 3 treasure chest boxes, plus a forced level 1 iron shovel. Tsuguto didn't expect all this and thought about what he should think. It was all just artifacts. Then Lori told him that the shovel would be his. So let him return it. Tsuguto said he wanted to share all this with him and didn't mind giving it back to him. But was he sure he wanted this particular shovel? He thought that this item, even in terms of level, was the smallest of all, where he said that he knew that he also wanted this shovel for himself. But he found it, so let him give it to him. He thought, okay. He didn't need it anymore. Besides, how long could he bear this strange name? It didn't make sense for him to refuse a girl who had such sparkling eyes, handing him the shovel and saying okay. Since then, he insisted that he had no choice. He really wanted it for himself. But this time only once. He could take it himself. She was very worried about this and expressed her gratitude to him for saying that the truth would protect him in exchange. He could take 2 remaining items for himself. This is what he wanted. But he felt guilty. What kind of feeling is this? Besides, both of these items are more valuable than a shovel. There is nothing else. In this area they should go back to the intersection where they came from, but it turns out they got lost. They came to the fork again, and Tsuguto thought about it badly. He had ever seen fork 3 similar times, were already at this level naturally. They would take the left path they chose not to take. They would follow there, but it would only lead them to an intersection with an exit door in front to the left and right. He ran further, and thought if his worst fear turned out to be true, the stone would be there. He found a bloody trail. Lori, which she thought, what does this sequence mean level? He turned to Lori and said that he had bad news, and one more bad news. Which one does she want to hear? Lori continued to swing her new shovel and said that it was the same thing Suguto said. Then she would start with the bad news that there was a possibility, or rather, she was almost certain that there was no way out of this level. Lori said it was really bad, she agreed, and said yes, that's why she had to postpone her training until later. As for the other bad news, there was no way out, but that didn't mean they couldn't get out of here. She asked what was the bad news, but she told her to listen to her until the end. She thought of something she would tell her was practically unfounded, but she was almost sure of it because they found the chest. She was sure this cave was magical, which meant there must be a way out of here. She asked her if she knew where those monsters in this cave came from, a place she assumed, and asked if they came from outside. Suguto said this was one of the possible options. How could it not be based on the experience they gained during the encounter with the poisonous spiders and the knowledge they received from the guild's book? There were 3 possible answers, one of which was that the monsters came here on their own from the outside, the second was that the monsters living here were increasing, and the last possibility was that it seemed the monsters were imprisoned here. That this cave was under the influence of some kind of spatial distortion. For example, if you looked at it from the outside, it would appear small, but in reality, it was very large. Spatial distortions could spread outside this underground prison, and if he fell under its influence, he would be drawn into this phenomenon called the cave swallowing people. But there was also a way to fight this phenomenon and get out. In other words, if they defeat the boss, then they will have a chance to get out of here. Lori listened to him carefully and said so. This is still good news for Suguto, who is happy about it and wonders if this is really good news. But that's all they can rely on. He turned to her and told her that they have to get out of here and become adventurers. She was very happy to hear this from him and said it's great. Suguto said that now, considering everything he said to her, they should look over there, standing the Cyclops they recently saw. And Suguto said this is the boss. Lori said so. Together they will defeat this monster.